It's a great pleasure for us to welcome back Alessandra Belloni in the Giullari di Piazza for what has become one of our fall traditions, to bring back Alessandra, and always with new ideas, with new passions, with new discoveries that she makes throughout the year and that she shares with us here at the Casa in the fall. And it's also very important for us because, as you might know, the group that Alessandra coordinates in Giullari di Piazza actually moved its very first steps here at New York University. And they became artists in residence at St. John the Divine and so on. But for me, it's also symbolically very important that they are somehow back on our stage and in our home. Tonight's program is particularly interesting and exciting for all of us because Alessandra decided to pair her group, Giullari di Piazza, with the SilverCloud Native American singers and dancers. So on top of the things that you might be already familiar with, like Pizzica Tarantata and the other traditional dances, especially from the south of Italy, we will be exposed to a different tradition. And I don't want to say anything else because SilverCloud and the Giullari di Piazza will also introduce some of the pieces and will tell us things as they perform, as we move along. It's a full evening, it's going to be very exciting. And don't leave after the end of the show because there is going to be a Q&A. So any question you might have for our artists, you'll be able to ask them. So I'm now asking you to please welcome i Giullari di Piazza and SilverCloud. Thank you.
Oh Thank you. If you can hear me, Julian, I need more volume on my microphone, please. Thank you. Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be at NYU Casa Italiana, where we started from back in 1980 with the Giullari di Piazza. So thank you, Stefano, Albertini, and Kostya. It is our home, and it's really a pleasure to bring the SilverCloud singers. We've been collaborating for 25 years. Wow. And we will tell you more at the end of the performance about our story. And so we began with an invocation to the sun from their tradition and from Naples, to bring healing, light, and we're going on with different songs from our traditions that are very similar. And the next one is called Fronni d'Alia, and it comes from Basilicata, and it's a story of a young girl that was forced to marry a man she didn't love and then ran away with a man she truly loved. And it's also done by women as they work in the fields and pick the olives. And Fronni d'Alia means olive branch.
warriors getting ready to go to war or a hunting party. And you see in the village, they're all dancing around, kind of getting crazy. But in these traditions, they have what they call victory songs. And they did these songs when the warriors came back from the war party or the hunting trail. And they sang, and they danced, and they showed in pantomime the moves that they used on the war trail or the hunting trail. And when they sang these songs, they sang these warrior songs. They sang it for the people, for all the people, to show how much of a proud people they were, where they came from the earth, and how they were happy to be here. So we now like to present Warrior Song.
To bring this show to Italy, so let's put it out there, right? After 25 years, we better tour Italy now. And it's my pleasure to introduce another wonderful artist from the land of Puglia, from the south, from Salento, a fantastic artist, Giancarlo Vaglialunga. And it's just all the magic things that happen here at NYU Casa Italiana. He happens to be here on tour with Canzoniere Grecanico Salentino. And I love their band, so I stole them for one night and li ho rubato per una sera. And I was going to do a song, e la vuoi, tu lo dici in italiano, se poi io lo dico in inglese.
Un canto di carcere.
It's a prisoner's song. Prego.
agisco, non sapendo come agisco, con lo vecchio camorrista, ma ci mi sa pazziando e pazziando, con coltello e col bastone, vuole specciare sto carognone, ma che radice la società. Poi si presentano un picciutello con la coppola del sgarro e si vuole maresciallo che alla faccia è tanto spregiato. Poi si presentano un capoposto con lo bastoncino in mano, con la coppola del sgarro, 5 lire e mai te dà. 5 lire non le degno, 5 lire non te le do, se il picciotto di prima uscita non appartiene alla società. Società qui insegna è buona, di coltello e di bastona, mo per speggiare sto carognone, ma che radice la società.
There are many connections between our southern Italian culture and the Native American culture of the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. One of them is the connection to the Earth Mother, and in our culture in the south is very strong devotion to the Black Madonna, but it's also in the north of Italy and all over Europe. So we're going to do this chant, a medieval prayer in honor of the Madonna. It's an Ave Maria, it's called Cunctisimus Concanentes. Comes from a time of the plague when people were living in fear of death by the plague, fear of the end of the world, and the war and the crusades. And so very similar to the time we're living today. And in those times, as you know, I'm sure you understand the connection. But in those times, people used these musical exorcisms to dance in a circle and spin in the streets and to carry the statues of San Rocco or the Black Madonna to stop the plague from coming and to also get rid of fear of dying in the war or from the end of the world. So this is Cunctisimus Concanentes.
represent what we call the fancy shawl dance. And in the Dakotas, out in the plains, this dance is called the butterfly dance. And it's a dance of rebirth. They say there's many different origins, but this is the one that I like to tell. That was explained to me. And they said that a butterfly lost her mate. She was feeling really down. She was ready to give up on life. So she went into a cocoon to mourn for her mate. And it's the story of this dance. She comes out of that cocoon. As she comes out of that cocoon, she spreads her wings, very much the way that this young lady will spread her arms and her shawl will drape. Those fringes will bounce and sway. And she wanted to show the Creator that she was ready to give life another chance. So this is the fancy shawl or butterfly dance. a Sioux lullaby, and somebody else had taught it to her, but when we came on, we told her the exact meaning of the song. And these lullabies that some native tribes have, they teach them, they sing them to the baby when they're in the womb, and it becomes their song. So like the baby hears that song all through its incubation period, the times its birth, its whole childhood, and they always remember that song. And that song they pass down to their children. So these songs and stories keep going. But this particular song comes from the Lakota people, and the words in the song are describing a man. He goes out to the field, in the plains area, and he stands there and he says underneath Creator, I'm here under you, and I want you to help my daughter survive, to help my daughter live, and for her to have a good life, and for our people to continue. And that's what he's saying in these words that you'll hear us be singing. So this is Inkpata.
This lullaby very much because when we first met, Kevin and Muriel were engaged. Can I tell the little story? And Josephine was not there. And then after we did this lullaby, Josephine came to the world. So they always say that it was a magic spell on this lullaby. Something like that. But look what a beautiful girl we have today. So a lullaby from actually the tradition from Puglia in the ancient Greek, Greekanic, Nia. Vuoi cantare con me? Ora
origin of these songs go back many years, and they were started as what they call war journey songs. And these warriors, when they were out on the trail, they would sing these songs to remind them of home, or on a hunting trail, to remind them of their people back in the village. And today they use them more modern style, and the reason they're called 49 songs, a 49 is like a party that's after a gathering where all the natives go. And sometimes, you know, native people, like all people, sometimes they're shy, and they might see that one that they really like, but they don't want to talk to them. But when they go to the 49, they sing these songs, and sometimes you hear English words where they're singing to that particular one they had their eye on. And sometimes they get together and everything works out well, and sometimes not. Just like with everything else. But these songs are used today for that. So we're going to sing a couple of our favorites, and hopefully you'll hear a bit of some English words in there you might understand.
program where we do special love song and then into the traditional dance from their tradition and our. I want to thank the SilverClouds, and especially, if you don't mind, I want to introduce them. Josephine Tarrant. Bars. His last name, Travis Richardson. And Tarrant. And also from our Giullari Piazza, our dancers, Francesca Silvano, Peter Giullari. Our guest from Canzonera. So we're now doing a song from your region, from Puglia, and also we have Massimiliano Rapido, who's a fantastic organetto player, musician from the same band, and are playing on Sunday, and I will do some of that promotion at the end of the concert. So this song I love very much. I learned in Puglia. I spent many, many years going to this region and other regions, Calabria, Campania, to learn the tradition. And this song has many versions of it. It's called L'Uruscio di Lumari. It's a love song, similar to their tradition. And it's also about the bite of love. So the lost love, the impossible love, and a person, a man or a woman listening to the sound of the sea, that's what the title means, remembers a beautiful love story that is gone, that creates the bite of the spider, and morso d'amore. L'Uruscio di Lumari. on stage, so we hope to do more with them.
So this last dance that we'd like to present to you, they call the hoop dance. And this dance originated among the Taos people out in New Mexico. And the origin of the dance says that there's a young man whose father was very ill. He's praying to the Creator for his father to get well. The Creator came to him in a vision and told him to go out into that desert, get some branches, and make them into hoops, like you see she has on her back. And he danced through those hoops. They pick those hoops up with their feet, without their hands, and make that hoop travel all the way up their body to get those good blessings of good prayers. And you'll notice in some of the moves that they make celestial stars that you might see in the sky. They make the essence of the male, the essence of the female. You see animals in the different shapes and forms that they do. But this is a dance that originated a very long time ago, and I'm very proud of Josephine here, who comes from a long line of hoop dancers who've been performing this dance for almost 100 years. So we're very proud of her, and we know you will be too. So this is the hoop dance. and our performers are going to come on out there and just get on along with them and follow them around and join the party. So, round dance or friendship dance.
Because I would like to give you an idea how this collaboration began, and then with Stefano Albertini too, if you don't mind, we want to do some questions and answers. So I want to just say that back in 1991 and 92, I was commissioned by Lincoln Center to write an opera dedicated really to the Native American culture as an answer of the 500 celebrations of the Columbus situation. I just call it the situation. And because I come from a very special family, I thank my relatives too for that. We're always fond of the Native American culture, and with my father, when we watched those Hollywood movies, my father would get up and throw stuff when the Cowboys won, and I'm not kidding, and we had a whole, we grew up with this worship really of this culture. When we came to America, my sister lived in the desert in Arizona, I did too, and it was always to understand more, not only what happened, but the beauty of these cultures. And then I started to understand that we have similarities, and so when we were commissioned to do this production, which was called Earth, Sun and Moon, 1992, I collaborated with his uncle, Louis Mosby, who's an amazing man, director of the Thunderbird, American Indian Dancers, and it was kind of love at first sight. We realized not only all our similarities about the music, but also of the way we live as Italians and Native Americans, and it was really beautiful. A lot of laughter, sometimes some screaming, sometimes some crying, a lot of food, a lot of parties. But the depth really is what I feel connected to, and the true spirituality, which is not the new age. I really need to emphasize there's a lot of new age movements that are imitating the Native Americans, and it bothers me so much. No offense to anyone, but when I travel, I always make a point and say you can't do that. That's appropriation of other cultures, and those people charge. Thank you. Those people that I meet in my travels charge thousands of dollars to do something while they don't, because it's their culture and you don't sell that. So all that said, this is where I come from, and then this collaboration has evolved, and I'm so happy to continue. And also that lullaby had a magic spell, because Josephine is an amazing artist. And so I want to say that they have a show. I hope they do it again. Muriel directed, wrote it with them, and it's an incredible show. It's called
Don't Feed the Indians, the Divine Comedy Pageant. It's based on Dante's Inferno. That's the Divine Comedy.
So I don't want to say much more because I think you should speak.
Oh, okay. So,
Do you want to say something?
Oh,
Before people ask questions?
I'm very
Want to
happy to
say
be
anything?
here.
No, this is very interesting. I would love you to tell us something more. These exchanges between Native American culture and how Dante Inferno resonates with you and how you transformed it into
Oh,
a show.
how did I? Okay, because let me go back a little bit. What I did was I used to work at the UN for 10 years. And part of that work was working on this thing called the Doctrine of Discovery. And the Doctrine of Discovery was really about when the discovery doctrine that's an everyday for when they deal with indigenous peoples, and especially native peoples, that when they came to land that was Tarantellas, it was considered void of people because we weren't Christians. And so that's how they started to Christianize us into, a lot of times, into Christianity. So it was part of one of the studies. I worked with the special rapporteur on the Doctrine of Discovery. And one of the issues was talking about every time you deal with an indigenous issue, this is health issues, this is theater, this is music, this is what's on TV and the media. We are still in that doctrine, meaning that we are not thought of as human. So part of that was I went and I delved into it, and one day I had a conversation with Alessandra, and we were talking about Dante's Inferno, and we were just talking, and then I said, oh, that'd be interesting to make that. And she goes, oh, I want to do it. If you do it, we have to do we have to make an opera. And we were up late, and so then I go into the Strand bookstore, and there was a pop-up book of the Divine Comedy, and then right there I said, I'm gonna do this. And so what I did was, I was talking about, how you go to hell and purgatory. So I made it into a musical comedy, but with very undertones of how we can make fun of ourselves as Native peoples, and how the media is so big, and how cowboys and Indians is still on television. It's okay to say we're gonna have a powwow. It's, come to my teepee sometime. All those things are okay in media culture because we are part of the Americana. So what happens is that we're so a part of the Americana, Americans think that it's okay to make fun of us because it's their culture too, and not realizing that the connection is if you treat us like non-humans, then what happens is you dehumanize us, because sometimes you make us so saintly that we are so spiritual that we float on air. And so what do we need? You can kill us then, we're not real. And so we howl or we turn into a wolf or something, and it goes. So, but we're real people who really bleed, and we feel, and we're still fighting to this day for our land rights, our health rights, our water rights, and we're even fighting here in New York City for identity all the time, especially in urban areas. I'm a New York City Indian. I grew up in Brooklyn, an Italian-American neighborhood. My husband grew up in Kearny, New Jersey, and my daughter grew up in Jersey City. And so we're urban natives, and we always had to constantly fight for our identity. And that was one of the things that are one of my platforms and our platforms is that we talk about all the time, is cultural identity is a human right. We are not, It's a legal construct for us to have our cultural identity, and that's why we fight so hard for it in our spiritual practices. So part of that, I don't know, you wanted me to talk, so part of that, that's what Dante is, the Divine Comedy. Yeah, so the Divine Comedy was about that, taking that idea of Christianity and the Divine Comedy and going to do, what is purgatory for Native people who have to be on stage all the time and have to play Indians? What does that mean? Right, so what is hell to us? And that's how it started. What does hell mean? Hell was something, starvation and people coming to our shores and us being baptized. And so then paradise at the end of this is about our images and embracing our images and fighting it at the very end. And we do this thing called No More Tom Tom. And we're no longer going to play the Tom Tom Indians because this is what was told to us, I mean, my husband one time was out on a set and they called him Tom Tom #1 and Tom Tom #2. So, and you have to, if you want to make a living in this industry, sometimes you have to put up with it. And there was a point in my life I said I was no longer going to do that. And the truth is, I am not a philosopher. I don't hold a PhD. I'm just a Native woman who wanted to work and wanted to be a character actress. And the powers that be never allowed it because they always put me into that doctrine of discovery in that little box. So that was my fight and that was my stand. And do you want to say anything, my darling?
I feel like I'm at home. I have to say remember. Well, we've been married for 25 years, yes. This is 26, that's correct. But, yes. But I'd just like to mention that we have an organization called Safe Harbors Indigenous Collective, and part of our mission is to educate non-Native people that we are still here today. And that we don't want to be put on a pedestal or anything of that fashion. But we just want our voices to be heard. And when Alessandra mentioned Columbus, and when we first did that first piece, it was, there were some natives it was very funny because we're on stage at Lincoln Center in the middle of the things by the fountains, and their first out-of-door festivals, which has been going on for a long time. But that was their very first one. And then the next day we were at the piers by the Intrepid protesting the Santa, the Nina, and I don't even know what the other ship. But all the ships came in and we're over there banging the drums, yelling and screaming, and then we're on stage the next night, So it was very, kind of a surreal thing. But what I'm getting at is that, there's a whole push right now for what they call Indigenous Peoples Day to replace Columbus Day. And that's a big thing here in New York because many Native New Yorkers who are of Italian descent are like, we're behind Columbus. This is our holiday. And when I met there's about 5 groups that put this on. We do a festival at Randall's Island. I hope my guy dropped our flyers off. It might be upstairs, he did. So hopefully you can make it out there, but it's just a day of Indigenous peoples, not downgrading anyone, just showing our point of view. And that's what we want to stress. We don't need a special holiday, but we want to show that we don't have anything against Italian Americans or Italian people, but we have everything against the story of Columbus, because everything that we were taught in the American school system and in the history books is not true. And that's our point that we want to make. And hopefully you'll pick up a flyer on the way out, but I just wanted to say that I don't want to be on a soapbox, but I hope you enjoyed our performance. And a lot of similarities.
I just want to tell you that in Latin America we don't call it Columbus Day, it's the Dia de la Raza. And that's it. Yes, to pay homage to the indigenous people all over Latin America and all over the United States.
Wonderful.
And we don't identify at all with this idea of Columbus Day. Even though I'm Italian descent, I think it's terrible to recognize somebody who was a puppet and we have nothing to do with him.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
I love the entire performance, but I'm mostly curious about the final dance. Was that an exorcism?
Yes, it's a musical exorcism in a way. It's the bite of the tarantula, the traditional Pizzica Tarantata from Puglia. And it's done to cure a original form of depression known as a tarantismo, attributed to the venom of the tarantula and the bite of the tarantula. They're afflicted mainly women, sometimes men, who dance to get out of their web and get rid of the venom, which is the society and the it can be many different things. So the bite is also known as bite of love, sometimes connected to unrequited love or the loss of a loved one, sometimes also to abuse. So it's a very intense, and I'm very happy that he was here with us because that's his land, and also from Massimiliano who plays the accordion. I should have invited him again. So yeah, it's a musical exorcism if you want to put it that way.
And talking about the Tarantate or Invasate, you might have seen that upstairs we have a photographic exhibit. This is just a small portion of a much larger exhibit dedicated to the photography of neorealism that is at the Gray Art Gallery, that is the Art Gallery of New York University, Washington Square West. And there is a section within that exhibit that documents with photography and magazine articles le invasate, le tarantate. These are very rare pictures because normally people were not allowed to take pictures. This was considered a very intimate, very sacred moment, the moment of the exorcism or the dance that would. So it's an extraordinary document, and it's here in New York, a few blocks from here. So I invite you all to take a look at the photography of neorealism exhibit upstairs here, but more specifically regarding this point at the Gray Art Gallery on Washington Square West.
Perfect. Anyone has more questions? Okay. And then I have a couple of announcements.
Thank you very much for your, I was anxious to see your presentation, and I really I'm related to it. I wanted to continue or take a point from the lady Spanish. I'm from Panama. And yes, we call it El Día de la Raza. And I am a retired teacher, and I did dance, and creative movement. And the indigenous dances is one of the ones that I teach my kids. But I taught them that we, the Latin American people, we belong to three razas: indigenous, African, and Spanish. This is the way I taught them, and then I taught them the indigenous dance, the one that in my country the way we do it, because in my country we have the indigenous group that is active in Panama.
I'm from Cunayala. My grandfather is from Cunayala.
Vaya. So, yeah, thank you for the lady for to bring back that, because in Latin America it's El Día de la Raza. Thank you again.
Thank you. Anybody else? Do you have a question?
Thank you so much for your beautiful performance. I have a musical question for you guys. Do you ever perform with another instrument besides voice and drum?
Yeah, we use rattles and different types of drums. Right now we're using hand drums because it's just the two of us. I had a slight health problem, so I couldn't stand. Like normally we'd stand and sing with these drums, but normally we sit around a big drum, which they call powwow drum, which is about 30 inches circle, and about 8 or 9 guys play on it, and the women stand behind us and sing, kind of like the women were standing over here. And that's kind of mainly what we do, but myself, I'm not 25 anymore.
What about the flutes?
But, yeah, the flutes, I mean, there's very different, they're used for different purposes. and some of them, you know, I'm very expert in, others I'm not. So, you know, we play what we're good at, and but yeah, there's chording flutes, but there's also, you know, flutes used to send messages. You know, it depends on what area, what tribe they come from. You know, there's over 565 federally recognized tribes and hundreds of others that aren't. And they all have their own traditions. We all have our own different traditions. And that's why I explained when the dances, where they came from, what tribes they were. And the songs that that first song was the Zuni Sunrise song from out in Arizona. It was taught to me by a gentleman by the name of Chester Mahudi. And he was a very famous in American dance theater, but he became a very good friend of mine later in life, his life, I should say. And he taught me that song, but we use it at the beginning of performances because it's our opening, just kind of how the design of the show went. The whole arc of it started from the beginning of the sunrise to the end, to the healing, to getting that out, and then the celebration of life, because that's
Hoop
our
dance is a
journey.
healing dance.
Right. And that's how we see things in most native cultures, is 4 stages, and that's how we work it. And then that's where the music comes in. You know, and it's learning those things and finding teachers like, you know, I understand Giancarlo's like a legendary tambourine player.
Indigenous.
He made sounds yesterday that I never heard, and I was like, and it made me feel really good. It was like, whoa, you know, great, we're gonna check out something new, like, you know, like, and that's how we feel. Like myself, Travis hasn't singing as long as that, but he being with us, he's kind of learning the same things and feeling those same things, because it is fascinating, and you're always learning. Like, none of us are experts, we don't know everything. You're always learning. You can be 80 years old and still learning.
Well, that's life.
Yes, that's true. That's what I tell my students. Some of my students are here. I'm glad they came, because this tradition, especially the Southern Italian, I've been going to the deep South for every year. I always learn something new. I always learn something new. It never ends. It is not something you will learn on YouTube. You got to go down to the land and be with the people. If you're born in it, you're more blessed, but if you really want to understand, you have to be with the natives to learn. And also, I want to just say that there are similarities, as you may have seen, in our dance steps, and those are healing dances, so that's how we were created. We're all very similar. And also the similarities, the basket dances, there are infinite similarities, as well as the style of chanting. The women in their tradition sing very much high, like they do. In Puglia and Calabria, some of the women have the same high-pitched voice. So there are many, many similarities. When I created that show, the spirit was, back in '92, to make a kind of a spook on Columbus, that he was lost, he had no idea where he was going, he was a criminal, he killed a lot of people, and he ended up in this place, but he was played by Pulcinella, and it was very funny, and then he met Coyote, and then they became friends, and so we kind of changed the history at that time. And at the end, we had a giant puppet of Mother Earth when we realized that we were similar, and we all worship the land like they do in the south of Italy, especially. They're very connected to the earth. We all danced around the Earth Mother puppet, and we all, in another version, we went inside the puppet. So this is the spirit of this performance, that we're all similar, we're all the same, there is no need to fight on Columbus or things like that. We just have to honor the people who were here before. And they were not discovered! Otherwise we discovered Puglia, we discovered Piazza. So thank you. Do you want to say anything, Giancarlo, from the experience in Italy? Yeah.
How the Castanuelas started being used in
South
of Italy, because Castañuelas in Spanish, and
they're not
they
Spanish.
originated in Spain. Or at the same time they were originated in South Italy.
Sì, anche io lo posso dire, no, possiamo dire
I'm
insieme.
asking the question. I don't
Vuoi
know.
rispondere? Rispondere. Ok, possiamo dirlo insieme. The Castanets are not Spanish. They came from Italy first. Spanish dominated Naples for 300 years. Another example of domination. We were discovered by the Spanish. At the same time that they came here, they discovered the Neapolitans. But the actual instrument is also North African. There is a similar instrument, a that they use in Morocco. And a lot of those instruments are also North Africans. But in Naples, they're used to keep the beat. Tu vuoi dire qualcosa, Massimo? Io ti ho spiegato che viene pure da Nord Africa, da Marocco.
Solo una nel Sud Italia c'è la però si trovano comunque in tutto il mondo alla fine.
The same type of instrument is found all over the world.
Poi hanno dei nomi differenti, però fanno parte degli idiofoni, praticamente. Idiofoni.
Idiofoni, questa è una parola che non so tradurre. He's an ethnomusicologist, he knows a lot. So it's not a Spanish instrument. When they were brought to Spain, the classical Spanish dancers decided to use castañuelas, which is a completely different technique, and then some of the gypsies sometimes, not always. But it's not a Spanish instrument. Sorry to change it. It's another discovery. Anybody else? So I want to make a couple of announcements before people leave. So, announcement, the first one, that the Canzoniere Greganico Salentino has a show Sunday at 7 at Joe's Pub. I highly recommend people to go see it. It's the beautiful music. And questo non lo sapevo. And on the 14th, Ryan Park, the Accordion Festival. Then I would like to make another announcement. I hope my friends will come. October 9th, I'm very proud to say that my sister Gabriella Belloni, who is a writer, director, and has done a great book called Il mio sentiero americano, My American Path. We will be here for the first time in New York in many, many years. She's the one who opened the door for me to come to America in 1970, so I came in 71. And she's going to do a special presentation, thanks to Stefano Albertini and Hostia, bringing a film that was shown on Rai television of her story as a rebellious woman who left Rome and decided not to go back, and it's called Le ragazze del 68, the women of 1968. So I hope you will come, I will promote it, and she's going to speak about her book. So I'm very proud of that. I really want you to come and bring your mother and all the feminist women, because my sister fought for freedom, and then I followed her. Everything else happened. And she also, in her book, she speaks about her experience when she lived in Native with the Navajos in Arizona. Very interesting story in the early 70s. And she got arrested.
So if I can just interrupt for 1 second. They did drop off the flyers, and Travis is going around with their it's a free show, free day. Come on out, support the indigenous people. It's free admission on October 7th and 8th. Out on Randall's Island, and that's the Sunday and a Monday, and there'll be concerts. Our full drum will be there, performing with a bunch of other natives. But I just wanted to make sure because
that's very
they
important.
got him here.
So then we also have upstairs. I think there's someone there with our CDs: SilverCloud, Giancarlo, Alessandra Belloni, Giullari, Piazza, and a mailing list. And if you're interested in studying with me, I teach in New York. There's a mailing list. I also teach in Tuscany every summer. And I lead a pilgrimage to the sacred sites of the Black Madonna. But my next retreat is in Hawaii in January, in a very special place. And I do work there with the Black Madonna and the healing power of the Tarantella. So if there are no more questions, we would like to thank you all. Make sure you have those flowers and CDs.